This is Groundeffected. My name is your dad. It's actually Brent, and welcome to picking little bits of failure out of your resin vat. And this is a bonus video. If you wanted to learn how to make something look like a bronze statue, then this video is going to show you exactly how to do that. Recently I was looking on the internet, and on that internet I found a file that I just could not pass up. The file was from Djinn Miniatures, and it was Eddie Munson from Stranger Things. I had to think about that because my brain couldn't put more than 3 sentences together. That's okay, let's just paint because that's the only thing apparently I'm good at. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, you need to leave some words in the little box at the bottom of the video, because without your words, what's the point of having the little box? Make sure when you're down there, click subscribe, because we all know if you do that, I will get 1 more subscriber. So in order to paint this model, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need to make sure there is a good solid base coat on it. For the base coat with this, I used black, but I did use a white primer over the top, just to give it a zenithal highlight. In hindsight, I would have just done completely black on its own. I then took brass from Monument Hobbies and I then dry brushed that straight over the top of everything. Dry brushing is a technique where you take most of the paint that you've spent all your money on and wipe it off of your brush. So you pour it out onto a palette and then pick it up with your brush and wipe it all off again. And when you've seen all your money go into a tissue, you then start to dust your model with what's left on that brush. Sometimes a large brush is going to help to get an overall feature on everything. It's going to pick up small edges and it's going to be great, but it may not get into all the tiny nooks and crevices. So this is when I would use a smaller dry brush. The best types of brushes for dry brushing is a makeup brush. You can get them in many different sizes. I like to keep a large variety of sizes from large to super tiny. The large ones are the ones that I use mostly to get good coverage, and the small ones just get in small gaps most of the time. Once I had done with the bronze, I gave it a copper dry brush with the larger dry brush just to catch some of the edges. I then took Resin Flesh Shade and I sprayed that mostly from the bottom, but pretty much all around the model. I wanted this to pull up a little bit in some of the texture on the model. Once that had fully dried, I then dry brushed it 1 more time with copper again. Now that it's looking super shiny, you can probably leave the model at this point and it still looks great anyway. But I wanted to take it further. So I used Acrylic oxide from Citadel paints and I literally just smothered this all over the model, making sure not to work too far because if I went too far ahead, it may dry sooner than I can take it off. I used a bit of water and I smeared that over the top of the paint that I had put down just to make it a little bit thinner, and then I went back with a tissue and I just wiped off most of the raised edges, so leaving this in the crevices. This you almost want to go in the same place as where your wash would generally go. This is going to fill in the cracks and it's going to give it that oxidized look. It's going to look absolutely crazy, especially doing this at first. You are definitely going to feel like you're making a big mistake, but just stick with it and just follow your guns to the end. I did the same thing with the pedestal where I just made sure that I'd put a super thick coat over everything and then I just wiped that off with a tissue. I then came back with the dry brush of copper over the top of the entire model. This was just to catch some of the raised edges and bring back some of that metallic luster that these paints seem to have. In order to bring out the lettering that is on the base, I'm going to use a silver. It's quite a bright silver. This is from Ammo by Mig, and I'm just going to use the side of my brush. If you look very carefully, you can see I'm just using the side of my brush. For this and the next step, which is doing edge highlights, I used white mixed into that silver just to catch some of the edges around the statue to bring a little bit more attention to certain features on the statue, specifically bringing attention to the sharp corners of the pedestal and around the guitar. I did use this in certain other places to bring out a little bit of highlight on other parts of the model. Now, in order to finish this superhero of Hawkins off, what I needed to do was give it something to stand on. I don't really like small little miniatures just standing on their own, so I felt like I'd give it a felt base. I put some epoxy on the bottom of the pedestal and I stuck that down onto a piece of felt. I bought this felt super cheap from the craft store, and all you need to do once it's dried is just cut it off square, careful not to scrape the base, and that is where I called it good. Now I know this was a super fast, super short video, but I wanted to make sure that you guys could pick up on this super simple trick for anything you want to do in the future. In fact, if you wanted to just take any of your models and you just wanted to get them done really fast, but still look pretty cool, this is a super great way of doing that. Now of course, I must say a super thank you to my patrons, because without you guys, none of this would be possible. And if you didn't know anything about the Patreon, there is a link for that in the description below. If you join the Patreon, you get access to our private Discord, which I will help as much as I can whenever I'm available, which is most days. And if it's not me, there is many people in that Discord group already who are really extremely skilled and can possibly help you with pretty much most of the questions you have to ask. And unlike any of the other social medias, you will not be berated and treated like an idiot. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel, the best thing that you can do is click like, watch the video all the way to the end, and when you're done with this one, watch another. If you want to support even more than that, then share the video with your gran, because that will help the algorithm figure out that the video needs to be seen. Of course, we want to take over the entire of YouTube. Enough of all that nonsense. We all know that we're at the part of the video where I need to tell you one thing. If you didn't like anything you saw in this video, then probably the best thing you could do for yourself is click dislike and then kindly f*** off. Now that was a surprise video.